The San Diego sun burned white across the Coronado base, turning the concrete parade ground into a mirror of heat. The Pacific wind carried the smell of salt and sweat, mingling with the faint metallic tongue of spent brass from the firing range nearby. Inside the assembly hangar, 50 Navy SEAL candidates stood in rigid formation, battle-hardened, scarred, and proud. They'd fought through weeks of Bud as hell and thought they'd seen it all. Then the door opened. Lieutenant Commander Mark Redding stepped in, his boots echoing sharply on the polished floor. Behind him walked someone unexpected, someone who made every head turn. She was tall, athletic, and moved with a quiet confidence that didn't match her newcomer status. The black training uniform she wore fit cleanly against a frame that radiated control rather than intimidation. Her posture was perfect, her expression unreadable. Whispers started instantly. "Who the hell is she?" muttered Petty Officer Drake, a 6-foot Texan with arms like tree trunks. "Public relations stunt," another voice scoffed. "Gotta make it look inclusive now." "Yeah," someone else chuckled. "Bet she won't last a week." Redding stopped them with a glance so sharp it could cut steel. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice calm but commanding, "this is your new teammate." The woman stood still beside him, eyes straight ahead, jaw locked in discipline. Her name tag was simple, Dawson. No first name, no rank visible, just the name. "She earned her spot the same way you did," Redding continued. "Every mile, every wave, every bruise." The hangar fell quiet. Even the fans above seemed to hum more softly. Redding looked down the line of soldiers, his face impassive. "You don't have to like it," he added, "but you will respect it. Out there, respect means survival." He didn't explain more, and he didn't have to. The authority in his tone left no room for argument. Still, every man in that room was thinking the same thing. How the hell did she get here? When the formation broke, Emily Dawson followed the others to the training field, her steps measured and deliberate. She didn't look at anyone, didn't flinch when shoulders brushed hers intentionally, testing her boundaries. The California sun glared in her eyes, but she didn't blink. Chief Instructor Wilkins, a grizzled veteran who'd been with the SEALs for over 20 years, was waiting at the obstacle course. His arms were folded, and his voice thundered like a storm. "All right, recruits. Let's see if the lady can keep up." A few smirked. Dawson didn't react. She moved to the start line, crouched slightly, and waited for the whistle. Go. The recruits took off like unleashed dogs, dirt and sand exploding beneath their boots. Dawson moved smoothly, not fast, but efficient, every motion calculated, balanced, precise. While others grunted and stumbled over the first wall, she leapt, hands gripping the top edge with quiet power. Her body swung over like it belonged there. Drake, running beside her, shot her a sideways glance, annoyed. "You think you can outpace me, sweetheart?" No response. By the time he landed clumsily in the mud pit, Dawson was already halfway through the rope climb, her arms coiled and legs steady. The muscles in her back moved like machinery, graceful, exact, relentless. "Come on, men," Wilkins barked. "You're getting shown up by a ghost." The word hit Redding hard. Ghost. He remembered another man older, quieter, eyes sharp as rifle glass whom the Pentagon once called Ghostwind. He had trained with Redding years ago, during covert operations in Afghanistan. A sniper so skilled his shots were whispered about in disbelief. The man had vanished from records after a classified mission went bad. Officially, training accident. Unofficially, he'd gone dark. Now, watching Dawson tear through the course, Redding knew exactly whose ghost had returned. By the time the recruits crossed the finish line, most were gasping for breath. Dawson stood upright, hands behind her back, breathing evenly. Sweat trickled down her temple, but her expression remained calm. Wilkins blew the whistle, glaring. You think this is some kind of game, Dawson? No, Chief. Her voice was steady, low, and sharp enough to slice through the noise. You trying to prove something? No, Chief. Then what are you doing here? Her eyes met his for the first time, green-gray, unwavering. Doing my job, Chief. A few of the recruits exchanged glances. Something about the way she said it cold, deliberate, absolute made even the skeptics quiet. That night, the barracks buzzed with curiosity. Dawson unpacked her gear in silence, while others whispered around her. Photos of girlfriends and kids lined lockers. Her space was bare, except for one small metal box and a worn pair of dog tags. Whose are those? A recruit asked, half teasing. She didn't look up. My father's. Was he Navy? She paused, then nodded slightly. He was. Something like that. Across the room, Redding passed by, stopping briefly in the doorway. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, enough to exchange understanding without words. He saw it now, the same focus, the same eerie calm that Ghostwind had once carried into combat. When lights went out, most recruits fell asleep to the hum of air conditioning and the faint crash of waves in the distance. Dawson lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her father's voice echoed in memory. The wind's your ally. Feel it. Don't fight it. She closed her eyes, remembering the Arizona desert where he taught her to shoot tin cans from half a mile away. She'd been 12. Her rifle had been nearly her size, but she'd hit each target dead center. He'd smiled faintly, pride hidden beneath that stoic face. Someday, he'd told her, someone will underestimate you. Don't correct them, surprise them. Back in Coronado, as the night deepened, the waves carried the same rhythm as a heartbeat. Dawson finally drifted into light sleep, hand resting unconsciously over her father's tags. The next morning, before sunrise, the recruits gathered at the range. The Pacific horizon glowed orange as the sun rose behind the silhouettes of rifles lined neatly in a row. Precision test, Wilkins announced. 1,000-yard target. Winds at 11 miles, cross current from west. Let's see who can think and shoot. One by one, recruits fired. Hits were sporadic. Even the best shooters struggled against the wind. Then came Dawson's turn. She lay prone, cheek against the stock, eyes peering through the scope. The world went silent for her, the murmurs, the waves, the clatter all gone. Only breath and distance. She adjusted elevation, corrected for drift, and exhaled slowly. The shot cracked. Half a second later, the steel target rang center mass. Dead perfect. Silence. Redding didn't move. Wilkins's expression faltered, just for a second. Around her, disbelief painted every face. Someone muttered under their breath, "No one's ever hit that first try." Redding turned toward Wilkins, voice low. "Told you," he said quietly. She earned her place. He didn't mention Ghostwind. He didn't have to. That evening, when Dawson passed by the range again, the target still stood there, one perfect hole, glinting in the metal like an unspoken promise. The men no longer asked, "Who the hell is she?" They were beginning to understand she wasn't there to compete. She was there to rewrite what impossible looked like. The Arizona sun didn't forgive anyone. It burned through skin, bone, and memory alike. Emily Dawson had grown up under that sun, in a world where silence carried weight and precision was survival. Her father, James Dawson, wasn't just a man to her. He was a mystery dressed in desert dust, his words few, his lessons eternal. He was known to very few by his real name. To others, buried deep inside classified files, he was Ghostwind, a sniper whose record defied logic. Some said he could hit a target a mile away in full darkness. Others whispered that he'd once saved an entire convoy by shooting out an RPG emitter. None of it was ever confirmed, but Emily believed every word, because she'd seen what he could do. Their home sat miles away from the nearest paved road. It was quiet, surrounded by mesquite and endless horizon. Every morning before sunrise, her father would wake her with a gentle tap on the shoulder. "Come on, kid," he'd say. "The wind's calm this time of day." She'd drag herself out of bed, still half asleep, and follow him to the ridge behind their house. That's where she learned to hold her breath, to feel the wind, to read distance not with numbers, but with instinct. He'd set up cans on fence posts, hundreds of yards away. "Don't rush it," he'd tell her, his tone patient. "The rifle's honest. It'll tell you what you're doing wrong if you listen." She was 12 the first time she hit the farthest can 700 yards out. The echo came late, like applause after a perfect performance. Her father smiled, not a big one, just the kind that made her feel 10 feet tall. "You've got the wind in you," he said softly. "That's rare." But Ghostwind wasn't the kind of man who praised often. The rest of the time, he was distant, haunted by memories she couldn't see. Sometimes he'd sit on the porch at night, staring into the desert. A cigarette glowed faintly between his fingers. She'd ask him what he was thinking about. "Things that don't sleep," he'd answer. When she turned 17, men in black SUVs came to their ranch. She watched them from the window, government types, no names, no smiles. They talked with her father for over an hour. When they left, he stood by the door for a long time, eyes unfocused. That night, he told her he had to leave for a training operation. He promised he'd be back in 2 weeks. He never came home. The letter came instead official, cold, typed. "Training accident. No survivors." She'd read those words until the paper nearly tore in her hands. The government buried him quietly. No ceremony, no flag folding, no answers. From that day on, Emily stopped being a child. She joined the Navy at 19, scoring perfect on her marksmanship tests. Her instructors thought it was luck at first. But when she started shooting through moving targets in desert wind, they stopped doubting. Word spread fast she was a natural. When a retired sniper from Virginia came to observe her training, he watched her for 10 minutes, then muttered under his breath, "Ghostwind's kid, huh?" She didn't respond. She didn't have to. Her file moved up the chain quickly. Her request to enter SEAL training was denied twice. No women had made it through. The third time, her application came with a classified note attached. Recommendation: candidate eligible. Clearance granted by special directive. No one in her unit knew where that directive came from. She didn't either. She didn't care. All she knew was that she was walking the same path her father had once taken, only this time she refused to disappear. The early days at Coronado were brutal. Most recruits thought she'd quit within a week. They called her names Princess, Barbie, Snowflake. She ignored them all. When they carried logs across the beach, she carried hers without complaint. When they waded through freezing surf until their teeth chattered, she stayed until the instructors called time. One night, during Hell Week, Redding found her sitting alone by the barracks, soaking wet and shaking, but calm. "You doing all right, Dawson?" he asked, voice soft but serious. She nodded. "Yes, sir." He studied her expression. No fear, no anger, no pride. Just focus. "You know," he said after a pause, "most people break by now." Not most people, sir." Redding had seen hundreds of recruits come and go. But something about her tone, flat, unwavering, reminded him of Ghostwind. Same eyes, same stillness. "You trained under someone," he said quietly. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. "My father. What was he like?" She hesitated. He didn't believe in second chances. Redding gave a faint smile. Neither do we. From then on, something unspoken shifted between them. He didn't treat her like a novelty. He treated her like a soldier. She didn't ask for help. She didn't need to. Her reputation grew inside the compound. During target simulations, she'd hit moving silhouettes before others even raised their rifles. During navigation drills, she found routes through terrain faster than GPS. The others still whispered behind her back, but the tone was different, now half disbelief, half fear. Then came the first live fire evaluation. It was supposed to test composure under stress. Simulated enemy fire, smoke grenades, real ammunition flying overhead. The kind of chaos that made even veterans lose focus. When the exercise started, Dawson's squad fell apart, immediately shots echoing from every direction. She hit the dirt, scanned for cover, and in one fluid motion, neutralized 3 targets before anyone else reacted. "Dawson!" Redding shouted over comms. "You've got incoming from the left." "Copy," she said calmly. 2 more shots, 2 confirmed hits. When the smoke cleared, her entire lane was silent. Her accuracy rating, 100%. The next closest? 72. The evaluators didn't know whether to congratulate or question her. Redding didn't hesitate. He walked straight to her and extended a hand. "Outstanding work," he said. She nodded slightly. "Just doing my job, sir." That line would become her trademark. Weeks later, alone at the firing range at dawn, she unpacked her father's dog tags. The metal was faded, the letters barely visible. She placed them beside her rifle and stared through the scope, the horizon still dark. "Still watching, Dad?" she whispered. A breeze rolled across the sand, gentle but steady. She adjusted the windage, felt the air shift, and smiled faintly. Then she squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, slicing through the quiet. Dead center hit. Somewhere deep inside, she felt that familiar echo her father's voice carried in the wind. "Good shot, kid." Emily Dawson wasn't there to prove that a woman could be a SEAL. She was there because her father had left something unfinished, and she was determined to finish it, no matter the cost. By the time the sun rose fully, the range officers found her still there kneeling, head bowed slightly, her father's tags resting on the rifle stock. She looked up, eyes clear and hard. "I'm ready for deployment." And for the first time, Commander Redding believed her completely. Morning at Coronado started before dawn, when the Pacific still looked like molten steel, and the air smelled of salt and gun oil. The recruits gathered on the sand, bare-chested, muscles stiff from another night of cold surf drills. Emily Dawson stood among them, quiet, hands clasped behind her back. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, where the first orange light bled through the fog. "Gear up!" Chief Wilkins barked. "Today's the endurance circuit. Then we'll see who can still shoot straight afterward." Groans rippled through the ranks, but Emily said nothing. Her silence had become a legend of its own. The first half of the day was a blur of punishment. Sprints across dunes, dragging logs through waist-high water, carrying boats overhead until shoulders screamed. The instructors shouted until voices cracked. By the 4th hour, men dropped out one by one, hands trembling, bodies spent. Dawson kept moving controlled, deliberate, never frantic. When she stumbled, she steadied herself without breaking stride. When the instructors hurled insults, she met their eyes with the same expressionless calm. "Keep it up, Dawson," Redding called, jogging beside the group. "You're setting the pace now. Just running, sir." By midday, the recruits were caked in salt and mud. Wilkins finally blew the whistle. "Hit the range. You've got 15 minutes to rehydrate and get your head straight." 15 minutes felt like seconds. They lined up at the shooting field targets glinting silver in the distance, wind gusting hard from the ocean. The challenge, 1-mile shot. No second attempts. Wilkins paced in front of them like a wolf. The record for this course is 1 hit out of 4. Anyone thinks they can beat that, today's your chance. Drake smirked at Emily. Better luck here than in the sand, Princess. She didn't look his way. She knelt beside her rifle, wiped her hands on a towel, and began setting up. Every motion was measured. Bipod locked, magazine loaded, cheek rest adjusted. Her breathing slowed until her pulse matched the rhythm of the waves. Drake went first. His first shot missed wide. The next 2 landed close, but not center. The 4th ricocheted off the target's edge. He cursed, slamming his rifle down. 75%, Wilkins announced. Not bad for a human being. Then came Emily. She checked the flag fluttering at the far end of the field, gauging the wind's direction. It was unpredictable, shifting west, then south in quick bursts. She plucked a blade of grass, let it fall, watched how it twisted. You waiting for permission, Dawson? Wilkins barked. No, Chief. Then take your shot. She inhaled, the air sharp in her lungs. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger. Time slowed. Bang. The recoil pushed into her shoulder, gentle but firm. Half a second later, the sound of steel rang across the field dead center. The range went silent. Even the gulls above seemed to pause mid-flight. Wilkins frowned, squinting at the target through binoculars. Lucky shot. Luck doesn't repeat, Redding murmured. Give her another. Wilkins hesitated, then nodded. Fine. Second target whined cross 15. She adjusted her elevation, shifted slightly, fired again. The same metallic ring echoed. The recruits stared. Someone whispered, "That's impossible." Redding's expression didn't change. He'd seen that precision before, long ago in the mountains of Afghanistan, through Ghostwind's scope. The same patience, same refusal to miss. When Emily stood, brushing sand from her knees, Wilkins lowered his binoculars. 2 for 2. He forced a smirk. Don't get cocky, Dawson. Desert wind's kinder than enemy fire. Yes, Chief. Redding stepped closer. Where'd you learn wind correction like that? Arizona, sir. Who taught you? She met his gaze briefly. My father. Something in her tone made him stop asking questions. That evening, word of the perfect shots spread through the base like wildfire. Recruits who had mocked her now watched in silence when she entered a room. A few tried to start small talk, testing her mood. She answered politely but distantly, always returning to her training log, always working. Drake, however, couldn't let it go. Pride was heavier than his gear. He found her at the range after lights out, practicing alone beneath floodlights. The ocean wind whipped across the open field. You think you're better than us? He demanded. No. Then why make us look like fools out there? I just hit my target. He took a step closer, jaw tight. You're a damn machine. People talk, you know. Say you didn't even earn your slot. That Redding pulled strings because before he finished, she turned, eyes like ice. Finish that sentence carefully. Drake stopped. The tension between them hummed like a live wire. Finally, he shook his head. You're not normal, Dawson. You don't blink. You don't break. It's creepy. She returned her focus to the scope. Maybe that's what it takes to stay alive. When she fired again, the sound cut through the night like thunder. Another perfect hit. Drake walked away without another word. Later, Redding watched from the control tower, unseen. He'd known soldiers his entire life, brilliant, broken, fearless, but Emily Dawson was different. She didn't seek approval, didn't fight for dominance. She simply existed at a level others couldn't touch. He thought about Ghostwind again. The man had once told him, Perfection isn't a goal, Mark. It's a curse. Once you hit it, you never stop chasing it. He wondered if Emily understood that already. Over the next weeks, the pace of training intensified. Combat dives, night navigation, mock rescues, every exercise pushed them closer to breaking point. And every time, Emily came through intact. Not flawless, but unflinching. During a close quarters drill, her partner froze under pressure, failing to clear a room properly. Emily stepped in, finished the sequence, then quietly corrected him afterward, not in front of others. Redding saw it and noted the leadership potential earned respect, not demanded. On the final evaluation day, a storm rolled in from the Pacific. Rain lashed the compound, lightning flashing over the ocean. Wilkins gathered them under the canopy. Final test before operational deployment. Precision under duress. 10 rounds, full wind, moving targets. Most groaned. Emily's face didn't change. As thunder cracked, she lay prone on the soaked ground, rifle steady. Each target appeared for only a few seconds before vanishing. 10 times she fired. 10 times the bell rang. When the test ended, Wilkins just stared at the results sheet. 10 out of 10, he said quietly. Nobody's ever done that. Drake muttered from the back. Told you, machine. Redding stepped forward. No, she's what happens when training meets purpose. Emily stood, water dripping from her gear, eyes fixed on the horizon again. In that moment, the storm around her seemed irrelevant. She wasn't thinking about records or recognition. She was thinking about the wind and the quiet voice in her head that always guided her. That night, as the rain eased, she walked alone down to the shoreline. The base lights shimmered off the wet sand. She took out her father's dog tags, running a thumb over the faded letters. You were right, Dad, she whispered. Wind tells the truth. Behind her, Redding approached, hands in his pockets. You know, he said, voice low, most shooters lose their touch when weather turns bad. You seem to get better. She half smiled. Bad weather keeps me honest, sir. He nodded, glancing at the horizon. The team's deploying soon. There's talk you might come with us. I'm ready. I don't doubt that, he said. Just remember out there, it's not about perfect shots. It's about keeping people alive. She looked up, eyes steady. That's all I've ever tried to do. Redding watched her for a moment longer, then turned back toward the barracks. The ocean wind picked up again, carrying the sound of distant thunder. Emily closed her fist around the tags. Somewhere deep inside, she felt the pull of destiny tightening, the way wind gathers before a storm. Soon, she knew, she would face something real, something that would test everything her father had ever taught her. And when that moment came, she wouldn't hesitate. Because perfection wasn't what she chased. It was what she owed him. The sun rose pale and merciless over Fallujah, Iraq, casting long shadows between crumbling walls and twisted metal. Dust swirled through the streets, like smoke from forgotten fires, and the air smelled of gunpowder, oil, and desert decay. Emily Dawson's team moved silently through the alleyways, rifles raised, eyes scanning every rooftop, every doorway. Each footstep carried the weight of discipline and experience, honed through weeks of grueling training at Coronado. Redding was at the front, leading the patrol. Eyes up, he murmured, voice low, steady but tense. The city's silence was deceptive too quiet. Emily moved at the center of the formation, crouched, body tight with anticipation. Her mind cataloged every detail: broken glass on the street, the angle of a cracked wall, the slight ripple in a hanging tarp. Every visual cue added to her mental map. Years of training under her father had taught her that survival depended on noticing what others overlooked. Suddenly, a distant shot cracked. The team froze. Redding gestured 2 fingers down, warning of a sniper. Emily scanned the rooftops instinctively. A shadow flickered behind a broken wall, then vanished. Sniper, northwest. She called softly. Confirmed. Redding radioed. He glanced at her, a flash of respect in his eyes. Only he and a few others understood what that voice could mean. They advanced cautiously, every step deliberate. But as they rounded a corner, insurgents emerged from the wreckage, firing from multiple positions. The team was pinned instantly. Bullets tore through walls, kicked up dust, and sprayed the ground with sand and debris. Contact! Take cover! Wilkins shouted over the chaos. Redding went down first, a graze across his shoulder. Emily dropped, scanning the area. The enemy sniper half a mile away on a rooftop was holding them in a deadly crossfire. Time slowed. The street seemed to stretch endlessly, dust and smoke, obscuring everything but the target. Emily's heart rate steadied. Her father's voice whispered in her memory, slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. She adjusted her stance, calculating wind, distance, and trajectory. Every movement was deliberate. She raised her rifle, lined up the scope, and focused on the smallest detail, the sniper's glinting scope reflection. The enemy's shot rang again. Dust exploded near her knees. She exhaled slowly, held steady, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle barked once. Half a second later, a faint metallic ping echoed across the street. The enemy sniper slumped. His rifle clattered from the roof. Time seemed suspended. The remaining insurgents hesitated, confused by the sudden silence in their sniper's command. Target neutralized, Emily radioed, calm as if reporting weather conditions. Redding blinked, still on the ground, disbelief in his eyes. Dawson, how? She didn't answer. She reloaded, scanning for the next threat. She didn't need to justify herself. The team's survival was proof enough. The insurgents regrouped, but Emily had already planned the counterattack. Using rooftops for cover, she guided her squad forward with precise hand signals, moving as a shadow through dust and debris. Every step was measured, every action pre-calculated. Bullets tore through the street again, but Emily's movements were flawless. She neutralized another threat with a single shot, then shifted to suppressive fire, allowing her teammates to flank. Minutes felt like hours. By the time the firefight ended, the street was silent, except for groans and the sound of broken concrete. Redding rose carefully, his uniform torn and bloodied. He approached her, awe mixed with exhaustion in his eyes. I've seen a lot in my career, he said quietly, but I've never seen anyone do what you just did. She nodded, expression unreadable. Just doing my job, sir. Later, in the safe house, the team regrouped. Their adrenaline still raw, hearts pounding. Some sat in stunned silence. Others whispered about what they just witnessed. Emily remained calm, cleaning her rifle and checking her gear, methodical, professional. Dawson, Wilkins said, finally breaking the quiet. That shot? Half a mile. Against a trained sniper. That was incredible. She looked up briefly. It's what my father taught me. The men fell silent. The name Ghostwind carried weight, even here, thousands of miles from home. As night fell over Fallujah, Emily sat on the rooftop, rifle across her knees, watching the city's quiet streets. Her thoughts drifted to Arizona, the ridge behind her childhood home, the dog tags her father had left her. She imagined him there, watching, approving silently. The memory steeled her resolve. The mission wasn't over. The team had to move forward at first light. And somewhere, in the chaos of a city torn by war, Emily knew there would always be another threat. Another sniper. Another ambush. Another life to save. But that first shot, the one that had frozen the battlefield, was her message. She wasn't a myth. She wasn't a fluke. She was a SEAL, a force to be reckoned with. And no one, not the Pentagon, not the enemy, not even her teammates, would ever forget the sound of that single, unbelievable shot. The heat of Fallujah had faded, but its echoes lingered. Back at the SEAL compound in Coronado, Emily Dawson moved like a shadow among men who had once doubted her. The whispers had changed, not mockery this time, but a mix of awe and unease. "She's something else," someone murmured in the barracks. Others nodded silently. No one dared challenge her now. Not openly, at least. Redding watched her from a distance, leaning against the rail of the mess hall balcony. He remembered the chaos of that ambush, the bullets, the shouting, the sheer impossibility of what she had done. She had saved lives that day, and no official report could fully capture it. Classified or not, everyone in that room had seen the result. "Lieutenant Commander," Wilkins called, walking past with a clipboard. "I don't know what to do with her. She's breaking records left and right, outperforming men twice her age." "She's not here to compete," Redding said softly, eyes following Emily as she carried her rifle to the range. "She's here to survive, and make sure everyone else does too." The range was alive with activity. Targets lined the far end, a mix of steel plates, moving silhouettes, and digital sensors feeding data back to instructors. Most recruits were struggling with the wind, the shifting humidity, the unpredictability of their own fatigue. Emily moved through the field with absolute calm, inspecting her weapon, checking her breathing, adjusting her position. Her past training whispered in every motion, the endless Arizona mornings with her father, the ridge overlooking the desert, the cans that had once clinked and clattered under the sun. Each memory became a tool, a calculation. She was precise because she had learned to measure everything: wind, distance, heartbeat, breath. Drake approached, hesitating. He had tried to challenge her before, to provoke some human reaction, but now he found himself watching quietly. His jaw tightened as she loaded her first round, exhaled slowly, and fired. The bullet rang through the air. Dead center. One by one, Emily cleared targets others couldn't even hit. Sensors confirmed perfect precision. When the smoke cleared, the scoreboard read 10 for 10. Every other recruit had missed at least once. Some had missed 3 or 4 times. Wilkins shook his head, muttering under his breath. "I've never seen anything like this. Unreal." "Not unreal," Redding corrected. "Expected." Later, Emily was summoned to a secure office. The door closed behind her with a firm click. Inside sat a man in plain civilian clothes, sharp, silent, dangerous. He didn't need a name tag. She knew the type. "Ms. Dawson," he began, voice smooth. "Your performance in Fallujah. It was impressive." He paused, letting her size him up. "But there's more work for you. Classified missions. Assignments that will not appear on your record. If you accept, you will be moving into a shadow role training operatives, executing high-risk missions, and remaining unseen." Emily met his gaze without flinching. "Understood. I accept." He nodded once. "Good. We'll provide details soon. Your father's legacy continues in ways the world won't see. You'll understand soon enough." She left without another word. Outside, the ocean wind tugged at her hair, salty and biting. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. Ghostwind's lessons weren't about glory. They were about precision, patience, and survival. And now, she was about to prove them in ways no civilian or military record would ever document. Her training changed after that. The SEAL compound became a proving ground, not just for physical skill, but for stealth, intelligence, and subtle leadership. Emily worked with teams of elite operators, training them in long-range engagement, advanced reconnaissance, and survival in hostile terrain. She became a ghost mentor, guiding without interference, correcting mistakes before they became fatal. Rumors began spreading. Trainees spoke in hushed tones about the woman who could hit a moving target at night by sound alone. A few swore they'd seen her disappear mid-mission, only to appear exactly where needed, having neutralized threats they hadn't even noticed. But Emily never sought recognition. She moved through every mission quietly, efficiently, and always deadly accurate. Her father's dog tags remained tucked in her vest, an anchor to the lessons that had made her the soldier she had become. Then came the first truly classified operation. Emily was flown to Nevada under the cover of night, landing at a base that did not appear on any map. The facility was cold, sterile, and heavily guarded. Inside, she was introduced to operatives trained for missions the public would never hear about. Her role, to refine their shooting, train them in patience and observation, and act as a consultant during field operations. Her legend grew quietly. The operatives whispered about her abilities, about hitting moving drones with sniper rifles, about detecting hidden threats through sound and shadows, about calculating wind corrections so precise that miles of desert wind seemed irrelevant. Some called her the ghost's daughter. She didn't correct them. They weren't supposed to know her full identity, only her skill. Months passed. Emily was deployed on a series of covert operations, each more dangerous than the last. She remained unseen, her kills precise, surgical, never reckless. And every time she returned, she carried the echo of her father's lessons: silence, patience, observation. Then one day, a photograph leaked, grainy, black and white, of a lone female sniper beside a shooting mat. It circulated online among military forums. Analysts speculated. Could it be her? The Pentagon denied everything. Redding only smiled when shown the image, recognizing the familiar calm, the posture, the aura of absolute control. Some things, he said quietly, don't need confirmation. You'll know her when you hear the shot no one else can make. The operations continued, each mission sharpening her reputation and skill. Emily's precision became more than physical. It was instinctual, almost preternatural. She read terrain, wind, and threat levels with uncanny accuracy. By the time she returned to Coronado, whispers of her feats had grown to legend, though few could confirm anything. Through it all, Emily remained disciplined, professional, and reserved. She never bragged, never sought attention, and never let emotion cloud her judgment. She wasn't a myth. She was methodical, calculated, and deadly. Her father's voice lingered in her mind constantly. The wind doesn't lie. The rifle doesn't lie. You just have to listen. Emily had learned to listen, to wait, to calculate. And the world, military, civilian, and enemy alike, was learning to fear the quiet precision of the soldier they would never officially see. By the end of her first year in classified operations, Emily had saved countless lives without leaving a single trace. Operators who had trained under her whispered of her abilities in awe, attributing her impossible shots and uncanny anticipation to luck or supernatural skill. Redding knew better. It was discipline, training, and the echo of a father's lessons carried through every bullet she fired. The world would never know Emily Dawson. It would only know the results of her work, the lives saved, the threats neutralized, the impossible shot. And somewhere, in the deserts of Arizona and the Pacific waters of Coronado, a young soldier remembered the man who had taught her, smiling faintly in memory. Her story was becoming legend, quiet but absolute. A shadow in the SEAL community, a ghost mentor, the living continuation of Ghostwind's legacy. And Emily Dawson remained exactly where she wanted to be, unseen, unstoppable, and ready for whatever came next. The Rocky Mountains of Montana rose like jagged teeth. dusted with early snow that caught the rising sun in sharp flashes of white. Emily Dawson moved silently through the pine-strewn ridge, each step measured, her boots barely crunching the frozen undergrowth. This mission was nothing like the urban chaos of Fallujah, but it demanded the same precision, the same patience her father had drilled into her from the Arizona desert. Her team of operatives spread out below, visible only as small dots moving among the trees. This was reconnaissance, extraction, and protection rolled into one. Emily's task: remain unseen, cover the team, and neutralize threats before anyone could realize they existed. The intel had been vague. An extremist cell was holed up in the abandoned mining town at the valley's edge. Satellite images suggested they were planning attacks on nearby towns, but nothing official could confirm the timing. That was where Emily's expertise came in. Read the terrain, anticipate the enemy, make the impossible shot, and protect innocents. Movement, northwest ridge, whispered Operative Lane, barely audible over the wind. Emily adjusted her scope, noting the subtle shift of the tree line, the faint glint of sunlight on metal. Two men, armed and unaware of the unseen threat above them, were scouting the perimeter. She exhaled slowly. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. The first shot rang out, soft and precise. One insurgent collapsed instantly. The second followed a heartbeat later. Both were taken down before anyone below could even react. Lane froze, astonished. Where what? Emily didn't answer. She simply moved her position, silent as a shadow among the pines. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm of the wind. Every branch, every gust, every sound became a signal. Hours passed. The team approached the mining town cautiously, unaware that Emily's presence above them was the reason they hadn't been detected. She guided them subtly, hand signals from a distance, her voice never leaving the wind. As the sun climbed higher, an alarm suddenly erupted from the valley below. The extremist cell had discovered a hidden cache too late to stop Emily's long-range neutralization. From her vantage point, she calculated angles, wing direction, and distance, lining up the targets one by one. Bang, bang, 3 more men down. The team on the ground barely flinched, unaware of how close the danger had been. Emily reloaded methodically, scanning every angle, ensuring no one remained. By late afternoon, the town was cleared. Not a single operative had been injured. Not a single civilian caught in the crossfire. Emily descended from her perch, only once the area was secured. She moved like a shadow through snow and rock, rejoining the team silently, as though she had always been part of the ridge itself. Redding was waiting at the extraction point. His face, normally unreadable, betrayed a flicker of admiration. "I've seen the impossible done before, Dawson," he said quietly, "but this was flawless." Emily merely nodded, eyes scanning the perimeter even as the extraction helicopter arrived. The wind carried her father's voice. The wind doesn't lie. The rifle doesn't lie. You just have to listen. When they lifted off, she allowed herself a small, private exhale. Montana was quiet again, the threat neutralized, and the team unharmed. But she knew this mission was only one of many. Each operation left a mark not on her, not on the team, but on the lives she protected silently. Back at the Coronado compound, word of the Montana operation began to circulate among the operatives. No official records, no medals, no press releases, just hushed stories of a sniper who struck unseen, whose precision saved dozens without a trace of her presence. Some began referring to her as the Ghost's daughter, though no one outside the SEAL and classified community knew her identity. Emily didn't mind. Recognition had never been the point. Precision, discipline, survival, it was all she sought. Still, even legends have their vulnerabilities. That night, in the quiet of the barracks, Emily sat on her bunk, cleaning her rifle meticulously. Lane approached cautiously, unsure if he should speak. "You're incredible," he admitted, voice low. "I've never seen anyone move like you. It's like you don't exist until you decide to." Emily didn't look up. "That's the goal. I mean, it's more than skill," he pressed. "It's instinct. You see things before they happen." A faint smile crossed her face. "Instinct is learned. Observation, patience, preparation. That's what matters." The conversation ended there, unspoken respect solidifying in silence. Emily had become the standard, the invisible measure against which others compared themselves. But she never let it inflate her ego. Every shot, every movement, every decision was a reflection of training and memory, not pride. Days later, Redding called her into his office. A map of the southwestern United States was spread across the table, pins and red lines marking potential threats. "We've got a new operation," he said. "It's domestic, small scale, but high risk. You'll be embedded in a civilian town, unseen. Surveillance, reconnaissance, prevention." Emily scanned the map, noting distances and topography. "Understood, sir." "This one's delicate," Redding continued. "No collateral damage. We need precision, timing, and discretion. One mistake, and lives are lost." Emily nodded again. "Then we won't make mistakes." That night, she prepared meticulously. Equipment checked, positions memorized, contingencies planned. The rifle stock felt familiar in her hands, the dog tags warm against her chest. Montana had been a test, a confirmation of skill, but this mission would prove her ability to operate entirely in the shadows, where the consequences of failure were immediate and real. The next morning, she arrived in the small town under the guise of a visitor. Locals waved politely, oblivious to the silent guardian on the ridge above. Emily observed the patterns of movement, the timing of patrols, the subtle cues of potential threats. Every detail mattered. Every misstep could cost lives. By noon, she had identified an unstable situation, a small cell of armed men planning an attack on a nearby bridge. The intel had been vague, but Emily's observation confirmed their intent. She calculated angles, distances, and wind conditions. The targets moved in predictable patterns. She waited. Hours passed. Emily remained unseen, crouched behind rocks, her scope trained on the targets. She made adjustments as the wind shifted, as shadows lengthened, as the sun dipped toward the horizon. Each decision was deliberate, each action precise. Finally, the moment came. The targets moved in formation, unsuspecting, confident. Emily exhaled, adjusted her aim, and fired. 1, 2, 3, each shot flawless, each target neutralized before the threat could manifest. The town remained untouched. Civilians unaware of how close they had come to danger. Operatives on the ground confirmed via discreet radio check that the threat had been eliminated without incident. Emily packed up silently, melting back into the landscape like the wind itself. Later, as she returned to Coronado, Redding's words echoed in her mind. Perfection isn't a goal. It's a curse. Once you hit it, you never stop chasing it. Emily Dawson didn't chase perfection. She lived it, silently, invisibly, and with a deadly grace that would leave her legend growing, quietly but irreversibly, in the shadows of every operation she touched. And somewhere, miles away in Arizona, the memory of her father smiled faintly at her resolve, knowing she had become exactly the soldier he had trained her to be, unseen, unstoppable, and unforgettable. The desert sun burned with merciless intensity over the outskirts of Arizona. Emily Dawson crouched atop a rocky ridge, her rifle resting lightly on a bipod, the scope trained on a compound half a mile below. Heat waves distorted the view, but her focus remained unbroken. This mission wasn't a training exercise or a covert town operation. It was personal, dangerous, and entirely untraceable. Intelligence indicated a domestic extremist network had obtained advanced weapons and planned to strike a government facility. Redding's voice came softly over the earpiece. "Dawson, status? Visual on targets. 3 active, 1 scout," Emily replied, calm as the ridge air. "Wind consistent. Temperature gradient minimal. Ready to engage on your mark." "Copy. Engage when ready," he responded. Emily exhaled slowly, centering her breathing, her father's voice echoing in her mind. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. She had learned everything in the Arizona desert: patience, precision, calculation, the subtle whisper of the wind. Now that training would save lives. Below, the compound buzzed with careless energy. Guards moved in predictable loops. Emily tracked their movements, memorizing the patterns. She spotted a scout on the east wall, carrying what appeared to be a digital detonator. Any miscalculation would trigger catastrophic consequences. "East wall," she whispered. Her finger rested lightly on the trigger. Bang! The scout dropped silently, the shot precise and invisible from the ground. The rest of the compound froze, alerted but unsure where the threat had come from. "Targets neutralized?" Redding asked. "Still observing. 2 more inside. 1 moving toward the southwest hangar," Emily replied, scanning through her scope. Suddenly, movement in the perimeter alerted her, a shadow out of rhythm. Someone had noticed the fallen scout. Emily adjusted her aim for the approaching guard, accounting for wind drift and the angle of descent. Another shot, clean and silent. The compound's defenses faltered, confusion spreading like wildfire. From her position, Emily guided her team below. Hand signals, subtle adjustments, unseen directions. Her presence was invisible, yet every decision was lethal. Hours dragged by as she coordinated, eliminated, and guided the operation. Sweat stung her eyes, her muscles ached, but she remained silent, poised, deadly. Every step, every shot, every whisper of wind mattered. Finally, all hostile threats were neutralized, without a single casualty to civilians or operatives. The operation had gone perfectly, almost unnervingly so. Emily allowed herself a moment to breathe, checking her rifle and scanning the horizon. Redding's voice broke through. "Dawson, you've just done what most seasoned teams couldn't manage in twice the time. Incredible work." "I'm not done yet," Emily replied. She knew there was always more to ensure, more lives to protect, more risks to eliminate. As the sun dipped low, painting the desert in crimson, Emily descended to meet her team. The ground was littered with evidence of the skirmish: discarded weapons, broken equipment, and the faint scent of gunpowder. Operatives glanced at her, a mixture of respect and awe evident in their eyes. Lane approached cautiously. How do you do it?" "It's like you see everything before it happens." Emily didn't answer immediately. She packed her rifle, moving with fluid precision. "Observation, patience, calculation," she said finally. "Everything else is distraction." The team didn't challenge her. They had learned long ago that Emily Dawson wasn't an ordinary operative. She was an extension of the rifle, of the wind, of the invisible logic that dictated survival and victory. Back at Coronado, word of the Arizona mission began to spread quietly among classified circles. No medals, no headlines, no recognition. Just whispers. The woman who sees everything. The sniper who moves like wind. Operatives trained under her, learning methods that were invisible to outsiders, but vital to success. But even legends have limits. Emily couldn't remain a ghost forever. One night, during routine debriefing, Redding called her aside. He was grim, uncharacteristically hesitant. Dawson, you've reached a threshold. The next mission highest risk. Top priority. Minimal intel, hostile territory, no backup. Emily's eyes narrowed slightly. I understand. This isn't about skill, he said softly. It's about judgment, instincts, and loyalty. One misstep, and there's no extraction. No one will know. No one will come for you. She didn't flinch. Then I'll make no mistakes. Weeks later, the assignment arrived. A remote border region, deep within enemy-controlled territory. Emily would have to infiltrate alone, gather intelligence on a weapons shipment, and neutralize the threat if necessary. The operation had been deemed too dangerous for conventional teams. She prepared meticulously. Maps studied, satellite data memorized, escape routes calculated, contingencies planned. Every detail mattered. Every step could mean life or death. The night she departed, she carried nothing but essentials, and the rifle her father had once used. Ghostwind's dog tags rested on her chest, a talisman of purpose and precision. The helicopter faded into the darkness, leaving her alone with the desert, the wind, and her mission. Hours into the infiltration, she encountered the first obstacle, an enemy patrol moving in a staggered formation. Emily observed from cover, calculating angles, timing, and wind. One quick breath, a steady hand, and 2 guards went down silently before the rest could react. She moved like a shadow through enemy lines, unseen, unheard. Her father's voice guided her with every decision. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. By dawn, she had reached the coordinates of the suspected shipment. Shipping containers lined the compound, heavily guarded, but her reconnaissance revealed a gap in the perimeter. Emily planned her approach, calculating each step with deadly precision. From her vantage point on a nearby ridge, she neutralized guards silently, one by one, her shots precise and lethal. The shipment contained advanced weaponry, enough to devastate multiple towns if it reached the wrong hands. She set charges on key crates, timing each for minimal noise and maximum effect. As the sun rose, Emily activated the charges remotely. Explosions tore through the compound, destroying the shipment without alerting the broader network. Enemy reinforcements arrived too late, unaware of the destruction until they approached. By midday, she had exfiltrated, moving unseen back to the extraction point. Her pulse remained steady, her breathing controlled, her movements deliberate. She had executed the mission flawlessly. No collateral damage, no operatives harmed, no trace left behind. Back at Coronado, Redding greeted her quietly. You've outdone yourself, Dawson. Twice now, the impossible has become routine for you. I just do my job, sir, she replied, voice calm, unwavering. You do more than that, he said, eyes serious. You protect lives others wouldn't even know were in danger. And you do it without recognition. That's rare. Emily didn't respond. She only adjusted her rifle, cleaning it meticulously, a habit learned from Arizona to Montana to now. That night, she sat alone, looking at the stars, dog tags in hand. She reflected on the missions, the training, the precision, and the silent victories. Every operation carried the weight of responsibility. Every shot was more than skill. It was discipline, legacy, and survival. Ghostwind's lessons had become her instinct. Every breath, every calculation, every decision was guided by his invisible hand. And she knew the most dangerous missions were still ahead. Emily Dawson wasn't seeking glory. She was shaping a legend silent, deadly, and unseen. One shot at a time, one mission at a time, she carried her father's legacy into the shadows, where no one would ever truly know her name, but where her actions would save countless lives. And for Emily, that was enough. Night had fallen over the Nevada desert, a velvet black sky pierced by distant stars and the faint glow of distant installations. Emily Dawson lay prone atop a ridge, her rifle cradled in her arms like an extension of her body. Below, a convoy moved stealthily through a canyon, a shipment of weapons too deadly to allow to reach hostile hands. This was the mission that would define her, not her first covert operation. Not Fallujah, not Montana, not Arizona, but the culmination of every lesson, every calculation, every impossible shot she had ever taken. Redding's voice came softly over the comms. Targets confirmed. Enemy convoy moving into canyon. You have one chance, Dawson. One shot. Emily exhaled slowly, settling into the scope, letting her father's voice guide her. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. She checked the wind, the temperature, the distance, nearly 2 miles. Every variable was calculated, every possibility accounted for. The convoy below consisted of heavily armed vehicles, each guarded, moving in tight formation. A single missed shot could alert them, causing catastrophic retaliation. She adjusted her scope, recalibrated for heat mirage and wind drift, and took aim at the lead vehicle. Time slowed. The desert around her seemed to fade away. She wasn't just Emily Dawson in that moment. She was Ghostwind's daughter, the culmination of years of precision, patience, and relentless training. Every heartbeat was measured, every breath controlled. Bang! The lead vehicle exploded silently to those on the ground, the charge precisely timed. Enemy operatives scattered, confusion rippling through the convoy. Emily calculated quickly secondary targets were in motion. She fired again, a single round through a small gap in a distant truck, disabling it without collateral damage. Redding's voice came over the comms, tense but calm. 2 hits confirmed. 1 remaining vehicle moving fast. You've got a moving target, Dawson. Wind has shifted slightly, adjust. Emily made the adjustment with a slight turn of the turret, sighting the 3rd vehicle as it rounded a bend in the canyon. The shot was longer than any she had taken before, but she didn't hesitate. Bang! The final vehicle's engine died instantly, its path halted. Enemy forces were immobilized, bewildered, unsure of the invisible force that had just struck them down. Not a single operative of hers had been exposed. Not a single innocent life had been touched. Below, her team moved in to secure the shipment, unaware of the near-impossible precision from above. Emily exhaled, checking the scope one last time, confirming that the threat had been neutralized entirely. Redding's voice finally held a rare note of awe. Dawson, that was impossible. It's just a shot, she replied quietly. But the weight of every mission, every lesson, every hour of training, every whisper of her father's guidance had led to this moment. As the team secured the area, Emily remained on the ridge, scanning for any remaining threat. Her father's dog tags rested against her chest, the familiar weight grounding her. Ghostwind's voice echoed in her mind, proud and approving. You've become more than I could have imagined. But remember, precision is power, not glory. When she finally descended, the convoy destroyed, weapons secured, her team finally saw her for the first time that day. Lane approached, awestruck. That shot. I've never seen anything like it. How far was that? 2 miles, she replied simply. Her expression calm, unreadable. The impossible had become reality, but to Emily, it was just another execution of skill. Redding met her at the extraction point. His gaze held a rare respect. You've done what no one else could. Not just skill, but judgment. That's what makes you different. Emily adjusted her rifle, cleaning it carefully. It's all training, sir. All observation. And the wind doesn't lie. The helicopter lifted off, carrying the team back to Coronado. Below, the desert stretched endlessly, silent, as if acknowledging the precision that had been executed above it. Back at the compound, Emily quietly checked into her quarters. No medals, no press, No recognition awaited her. But she didn't need it. The mission's success, the lives saved, the knowledge that the impossible had been accomplished, that was enough. Redding came to the doorway, a rare smile breaking his usual stoic demeanor. "You've officially gone beyond anyone I've ever trained or served with," he said softly. "You've earned the legend, Dawson. Invisible, silent, and untouchable. But remember, every legend carries its own burden." Emily looked out the window at the Pacific, the moonlight reflecting off the water. "I don't carry it for myself, sir. I carry it for them. For everyone who can't see what protects them." Her father's dog tags jingled softly against her chest. Ghostwind's legacy had always been precision, patience, and the discipline to protect life over recognition. Emily had taken those lessons and transformed them into a force beyond measure, a guardian in the shadows. A sniper of legend, a soldier no one would ever fully know, but whose actions saved countless lives. The next day, the classified mission reports arrived, marked top secret. The records of Emily's operation detailed the destruction of the convoy, the neutralization of the enemy, and the safeguarding of civilian lives. Her name was nowhere to be found. She was invisible officially, yet the ripple of her actions would extend far beyond those who witnessed them. In the barracks, operatives whispered about the woman who made the impossible shot, the ghost in the desert who could strike from miles away, unseen, untouchable, and always precise. Emily didn't listen. She was already preparing for the next mission, already calculating the wind, distance, and variables that would ensure survival and victory in whatever impossible challenge awaited her next. And somewhere, in a quiet place in Arizona, the memory of her father smiled. Ghostwind's lessons had not only lived on, they had become unstoppable. Emily Dawson stood on the ridge again, looking at the horizon. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of salt, sand, and freedom. She tightened her grip on the rifle, exhaled slowly, and let the calm determination of a lifetime of training wash over her. Perfection wasn't her goal. Survival was. Precision was her weapon. And her legend, the unbelievable shot that would never be recorded officially. The invisible protection she provided, the lives saved in silence, was absolute. The world would never know her name, but everyone who survived because of her would owe her their lives. And in that truth, Emily Dawson found everything she had ever trained for, every lesson her father had taught her, and the legacy she would carry forever. The impossible shot had been made, and Emily Dawson would never stop aiming.